I'm Scoot, and welcome to the Scoot on the Air YouTube channel. So, this weekend at Generations Hall in the Warehouse District of downtown New Orleans, there's going to be a celebration, and I'm honored by this celebration. Generations Hall has not reopened yet to the public following the pandemic, so this is their post-pandemic reopening, and they wanted to do it with an '80s night with me, along with a celebration of 50 years in broadcasting. And that's even hard for me to believe. I had my doubts as to whether or not I would even make it in the beginning. So anyway, I want to take some time here on the YouTube channel to just share a series of stories with you. Some of it will be the truth behind the microphone. Some of it will be things that some of you know, some of you don't know. But I owe so much to you. In fact, I owe everything to you. And I appreciate those of you who have listened over the years, for many years, and those who are new to the show, to a talk show on WWL Radio in New Orleans, 870 AM, 105.3 FM, or download the app Odyssey, AUDACY. Stream the show anytime, 1 to 4 Central Time, Monday through Friday in the afternoon. So going back to my really beginning, I guess my first real job, my first full-time job in radio was on WWL FM. And this would have been the early 70s. Now, I was so bad, I was so inexperienced that management put me on in the morning because FM radio had 0 ratings in the morning. Nobody listened. At the time, everybody listened to AM. And FM was popular at night and somewhat in the afternoon. Midday, mornings, nothing. People weren't listening because there was nothing to listen to. Now, my first job was as a kind of a junior producer for the Bob Ruby Show on WWL Radio, and that was on AM. And so when I finally got some experience on the air and got a part-time job there, then when the FM station switched from what was known at the time as elevator music, they switched at the time to a top 40 format. They literally put me on in the morning because nobody was listening. They were hiding me. So instead of accepting that as, as something that would discourage me, man, I accepted that as a challenge. And without any guidance from management, without any guidance, it occurred to me that if I just did a show, if I did a personality-driven show, just like they do on AM, that people wouldn't care whether it was AM or FM. They don't care what the band is. And so just do a show. Well, I started doing this crazy show, and it worked. And when I say crazy, I mean it was kind of crazy. Now, at the time, I knew of nobody in the entire country that was doing a morning show on FM radio. They were all on the AM stations. So here I am, feeling like this, pioneer. It's like, I'm just doing this show. And it really was insane. I mean, this is long before Howard Stern and the modern day shock jocks and shock radio. And I remember taking radio to the limit. I got fired for going to a Miss Wet t-shirt contest. That's right. There was a Miss Wet t-shirt contest in Fat City here in the New Orleans area. And this was the beginning of that craze. This was one of the very, very early Miss Wet t-shirt contests. Well, Captain Humble, who worked on the station that I worked on, was the MC. And my wife and I just went to go see what happens. Some people in the audience recognized me and literally lifted me onto the stage. And I suddenly became a co-MC. A weekly newspaper ran a picture that Monday morning on their weekly publication that had Captain Humble and me right next to this girl with just huge tits in this white t-shirt that was wetted down. So, you could see nipples and everything. I mean, it was like she didn't even have a shirt on. Well, just imagine a wet t-shirt contest. The radio station at the time was owned by Loyola University, which is owned by the Catholic Church. They were not very happy that two of their guys on the air were pictured on the cover of this weekly publication, which was a popular publication. And they freaked out and they fired us. Now, I was kind of newly married. So, I was really kind of freaking out over that. I mean, that was really a very, very, unsettling moment in my life. I'm kind of newly married. I just get this job. I'm doing this show. And all of a sudden, I'm fired. And they even told me when they fired me, they said, we've done some research and we cannot believe how many people recognize your name already. But they had to fire me. Well, the union, I belonged to AFTRA, the union did not want to represent me because they had bigger dealings with the station. So they didn't want to have anything to do with me. But here's what was interesting. The station actually ran commercials promoting the Miss Wet T-shirt contest. Top management didn't know about it. And so they used us as scapegoats. That like we just did this on our own. But they accepted advertising paid for by the client and they were getting revenue. So the union did not want to represent me. So I got a lawyer, and basically the lawyer told the union lawyer, you either represent him or you admit that you've been stealing his union dues for the last couple of years. They jumped to it pretty quickly. Anyway, the end of the story is I got back wages for the time that I was off. It wasn't long before I got another job because, again, the show was just gaining popularity. And suddenly there was something on in the morning. Scoot in the morning on Rampart 102 was the name of the station. And it was WWL FM. So I've got a long history with WWL because that's where I am today. So it's interesting that getting fired because I went to a Miss Wet T-shirt contest. And again, I got back wages to cover the time that I was out of work. So it worked out fine. It really was the best thing that could have happened to me. And I learned very early on in my career that controversy was good. Controversy worked. And that has, followed me. Well, it's kind of faded now, but early in my career, that followed me. Remember, that's the guy who got fired for going to the Miss Wet T-shirt contest, and that was a kind of an early buzz that really did kind of spark my career. And I tell this story mainly to tell you, first of all, thank you for supporting me, but also to tell you that we all have this voice inside of us. And only we can hear the voice. Nobody else can hear that voice. Only you can. And sometimes people will try to discourage you from following that voice. Sometimes society and societal norms will try to convince you not to follow that voice. But I think we all have a responsibility to follow that voice that only we hear. And there was a voice in me because I didn't get any guidance from management. I mean, I was kind of a renegade in radio, and I did not fit in. I was not part of the in crowd in radio. I was new in the business, but I was not part of any kind of, I did not feel any camaraderie with people in radio. And so I just went off on my own and started doing this show, and it worked. And to this day, I have continued to follow that voice that I hear inside. And it served me well. I haven't accomplished everything I want to accomplish. I failed at some things. But, after 50 years, I am so blessed to still be doing this. So in my next installment leading up to the 50th anniversary and 80s party, and by the way, if you don't have tickets, get tickets to 80s night and this party. I mean, it's mostly going to be 80s night, not much about me and the 50 years in the business, but that's just going to be a little part of it. But it's at Generations Hall, Warehouse District of New Orleans, this Saturday, July 17th. The 80s start at 8. And the some of the proceeds are going to go to benefit the Louisiana Hospitality Foundation, which has done a lot for a lot of people in the hospitality business here in the greater New Orleans area. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please subscribe. It's real simple and it's free. Just subscribe to the channel, and we give you an alert every time we do something new. And if you can't watch it live, the alert's there for you to come back and watch it when you can. But in the next installment, as I continue with this series, I want to talk to you about some of the early people that called my show. I mean, again, we're talking about FM radio, and nobody was listening. Nobody. And I got people to listen, and I got people calling in to the show. And one of the early people that called my show was a Playboy playmate who appeared in Playboy magazine, who was from New Orleans, and she was listening. And she called in. Well, that gave me instant cred on the air, instant credibility. And then also there was Tammy in the tub. Yeah, there was a girl that called me every morning from her bathtub. She was in the tub. And we talked about shit. So we'll talk about some of the early people that called the show in those early years. But I hope you'll join me for this series. And I'll even get into the story about backstage with the Stones and Wolfman Jack. I've told the story before, but he took all of my cocaine, and this was in the mid '80s, and I wasn't really happy. There was midget wrestling, and I wrestled this. It was a dwarf, so there was we're talking about some upper body strength. He turned on me, literally turned on me in the ring and tried to put me out. And I was even warned before that happened that Cowboy Lang, that was the wrestler, he was going to put me in my place because it was all agreed in advance that this is the way we were going to do it. Well, he didn't go along with that shit at all. I ended up being off the air for 3 days, trauma to the larynx. Oh yeah, that was scary too. So more still to come. Thank you for joining me on the Scoot on the Air YouTube channel.